What?
Hello, and welcome to the 38th gathering of the Adventure Party on this, the 24th of January. I'm your party leader, Brad Ludwig. We ask that you peace tie your swords, holster your blasters, and make sure you have your eyes closed and are prepared for wonder while you are gathered at the meeting table. I actually didn't stumble over an intro, and give it a little bit of mood going on there. Did nothing for you. Nothing. Not feeling it, Glenn?
I'm trying to hold it in so I don't explode. all over my camera.
Oh, you're too good to me, Glenn. You're too good.
I was actually trying to think of the proper Barry White song to sing, but I just couldn't get there.
I think "Let's Get It On" is the correct answer. So tonight we are going to be talking about, and we want to thank our listener Scott Schwartz for the topic, and the topic this evening is going to be minis or no minis. Is the theater of the mind dead, or are minis essential to gameplay for tabletop RPGs? Is there still room for theater of the mind? Dun, dun, dun.
Open your mind, quick.
Open your mind. I don't care what anybody says. Total Recall from the 80s. Well, no, that was early 90s. Yeah, that was early 90s.
Yep.
Still a good film. Don't care what anybody says. And it's not because of the three-breasted woman. It's a good film all the way around. Well, for the most part. Say, instead of doing a show about Total Recall, we should probably continue on. The second in command here is Glenn Bittner, and he is a movie reviewer on his YouTube show called The B-Movie Bunker, and is the creator of the RPG Mistrunner. How are you?
I was doing okay, but found out that they're bringing a mini-series of Dread to Netflix, so now I'm pretty damn giddy.
Carl Urban coming back for that, or they just
I think so. Not confirmed, but
yes, please let it be so. Let it be so. The Dread movie I thought was awesome. Absolutely. And enough of movie talk. We should probably continue on with our usual antics of our roundtable discussion, your game review that you do, Glenn, a bit of gaming news, and then we just jump right into our topic of the week. But to kick this off, you are going to review something that seems a little meta and kind of funny. So what is this?
This is, well, first of all, the game was originally titled Rampage, but for legal reasons, they had to change that to Terror in Meeple City. What it is you are all giant monsters destroying a town of meeples.
Okay, I want to pause for a second and ask the question, at what point did somebody think that they could get away with that?
I don't know.
For those of you who don't know, back in our day, there was an arcade game called Rampage, and I don't remember who owned the rights to that, if that was Midway or Atari.
Boy, I think it was Midway.
Yeah, it was Bally Midway. 1986 was the year. And yeah, you could choose to be one of, I believe, 3 different monsters. So a wolf, an ape, and a lizard?
Yep.
Anyways, it seems that this game was probably a little too close to home there, based on your description. So they had to change it up. So tell us more.
All right. Well, first of all, Dread. See, I got it on my mind, and then, and it's not even a done deal. It's like a petition. But anyways, to the game at hand. Terror in Meeple City is 2 to 4 players. Plays in about 45 minutes or so, and it's brought to us by Antoine Bauza and Ludovic Malblanc. Antoine Bauza is probably my favorite game designer. He brought us Seven Wonders and Samurai Spirit and Takenoko and Tokaido and many games I've talked about before.
Oh, yeah.
And Ludovic, or Vich, I'm not, probably Ludovic, I'm betting, but he brought us Cash and Guns and Mr. Jack and Cyclades. So it's got some good lineage for a game. So how Terran Maple City works is, so you have just arrived in Maple City as a gigantic, famished, scaly-skinned monster. Your goal, dig your claws and dirty paws into the asphalt, destroy buildings, and devour innocent meeples. In short, sow terror while having fun. The monster who causes the most damage if the carnage ends wins the game. So the board is actually made up of a bunch of different buildings, and the buildings are made up of, you have tiles that represent the different floors of the building, and what holds the floors up are meeples. So you use meeples basically as the pillars for the floors of these buildings. And you have all these different people in all these different buildings across the city made up into different neighborhoods. Now, your monster is a two-piece thing. It's a wooden little monster figure on top of a round wooden base, like a disc. And on your turn, you have a couple different actions you can do. You can move. In the move, you pick up the body of your monster, leaving just the disc, and you flick the disc on the board, trying to move across the board, making sure you don't flick yourself off the board, because if you do that, you lose teeth. And teeth determine how many people you can eat each turn.
Oh.
Something else you can do is you can demolish. And what that means is that if your paws, your little disc, is on a sidewalk next to a building, you can pick the monster body up, hold it above the building, and drop it onto it, trying to knock over floors and knock people off. You could also possibly toss a vehicle. There are a couple wooden vehicles in the game, and if you're in a neighborhood with that, you can pick the vehicle up, place it on top of your body, and then flick the vehicle at a building or another monster. Or you can use your powerful breath weapon, in which case you put your chin on the top of your monster and blow as hard as you can. There's a trick, though, is that you don't want to do things too hard, because, as I said, if your base goes off the board, you lose teeth. Also, if you knock meeples off the board, that means they escape. Oh. And if enough meeples escape, there's different things that can happen. You can possibly lose teeth. The game can actually end depending on what punishment board you're playing on. Once you've done your two actions, any meeples that are on the ground in the neighborhood around you, you can eat, as long as you have the teeth to do it. You can basically eat one meeple for every tooth you have. Every monster starts with 6. You'll always have at least 2. There's 2 you can't lose, but there's 4 that you can possibly lose. If you happen to knock another monster off their base, you break one of their teeth off, and you get to steal it.
Ooh.
Yes. The meeples themselves come in several different or colors. Journalists are blue. Green is military. Yellow are blondes. Gray are old people. And the red are heroes. And black are businessmen. You get points for every set of 6 that you collect in your stomach. And then you also will have special goals. You might get a bonus if you eat the most, say, journalists. Or, if you have the most blondes or whatever. You also have a superpower. Everyone gets their own superpower during the game. And you could have something like a stretchy tongue, meaning you could eat people in other neighborhoods.
Oh.
Or, basically you just get all these different special powers to basically personalize your character. And then you also have a super secret power, which is a one-shot effect that you can use during the game as well. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it takes me back to the old Rampage video game, which I probably spent the equivalent of 10 college tuitions on over the course of like 3 years. But yeah, it's physical dexterity, which a lot of physical dexterity games I'm not really big on, just because I'm neither physical nor dexterous. But this one, it's all about making a mess, and that I can do. You don't need to be that good to make a mess. And being a man of rather large stature, I have a pretty impressive breath weapon.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and despite looks, it sets up pretty quickly. I mean, under 10 minutes, you got the whole thing set up with all the meeples and the building set up. And there is a little tricky thing too, is that the sidewalks where the buildings fit on the board, they're actually the bottom floor, basically the rubble level, is actually attached to the board, meaning if you flick yourself into it too hard, you'll bounce right off and fly off the board.
Oh, okay, sure.
So you have to be careful of where you're flicking yourself.
And for those of you who are checking out the YouTube version of this particular meeting of the Adventure Party, I've been flipping through individual pictures from BoardGameGeek.com to kind of illustrate the bits that Glenn has been talking about. And we're looking at the board right now with the sidewalks and the base of the building, and it looks like the blue Rampage monster has flipped over on his side.
Fallen down on the stadium.
Yes. Now, this looks like a lot of fun, and I'm guessing it's very much a family-friendly type game.
Absolutely.
What's the age range on this particular one?
They say 6 and up.
Okay.
So obviously, a 6-year-old, you might need to give them some help on some of the reading stuff, depending on what their reading level is.
Sure.
But for their superpowers and whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely a nice family-friendly game, or a beer-friendly game.
Very much so. Have there been any expansions, or is this?
There is one expansion which I have not played yet.
Okay.
If I remember right, it's called Space Cowboy. The game itself came out just a little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
And the little expansion, I think it's just a special escape board. It's not like a whole expansion. The skateboard is where meeples go if they fall off the board. But the skateboard is a special where it only accepts gray meeples, and if you fill it up, you gain an extra secret superpower card. So I guess kind of a play on old people in that movie Space Cowboys with Clint Eastwood and
Sure.
James Garner, I think. So.
And they have a pretty robust website here, too, for Terror in Meeple City.
Yes, they do. It's originally from Repos Production. Asmodee, I think, is the one who's currently distributing the game, if I remember correctly.
Sure. And looking at their website, too, if you're missing any elements in the game or any are damaged, they seem to be pretty easygoing about you emailing them and giving your name, your address, the run number for that particular game that you have, and the parts that you need. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's they're a good company to work with as far as getting missing pieces. We've just had some with our demo, and just occasionally you get a copy that you sell to someone that's missing something. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of components in there, and it's there's 90 meeples.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of little wooden guys.
Yeah.
And if you're missing any, it does change the gameplay because, as I said, the people or the meeples are what separate the floors of the buildings.
Sure.
As it is in real life. People hold up their roof over their head.
And we were flipping through the pictures for all the meeples that were available in a box, and that was pretty staggering. There's 90 meeples or something like that?
90, yeah.
That's amazing. And how many people does it support in gameplay?
It is 2 to 4 players.
Okay. And what does it approximately retail for?
$60.
Okay. Which is pretty damn reasonable based on the amount of stuff that you get in that box.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And it looks like average playing time is about 45 minutes.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
it plays pretty quickly.
All right. So again, Glenn's game that he reviewed is Terror in Meeple City. The publisher is Repost Production.
Yep.
And it is being distributed by...
It might be through Asmodee, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Yeah, looking at this, I really kind of want this for my game library now. So, no, thank you for sharing that, Glenn. That's really awesome.
You bet.
All right. I want to talk to you briefly about Galactic Netcasts and a request for help from you, the listener. If you enjoy what you hear, if you consider giving us a monthly bit of support to help pay for our web and audio hosting, that would be great. Your support for as little as $1 a month can help us grow the network and keep things running. If you decide to do $3 of support a month, you can get a monthly newsletter with extra stories related to all of our podcasts, and we have a number of them, and we'll talk a little bit later about some of the different shows that the Galactic Netcast Network has available. And if you go all the way up to $5 a month in support, you get an extra episode of each of our podcasts, and that's available only exclusively to our patrons. So please go to patreon.com/Galactic Netcasts and show us some support if you feel you'd like to do that. We would appreciate that. All right, on to the news. And I was tickled absolutely pink when I saw this. Return to Ravenloft.
Yeah.
For older school gamers like Glenn and I, there was a point in time where there were wonderful settings available for D&D. You had the classic Greyhawk, which, I mean, if you talk to old school gamers, they'll swear up and down that that's one of the best settings that they've ever had for second edition. That was second edition. Yeah, that was second edition D&D. And the one that I really, truly enjoyed was the setting called Ravenloft. And in fact, they put out books based on the Ravenloft world. I believe I have an autographed copy from Gen Con of I, Strahd, autographed by the author in hardcover. Ravenloft was basically a damned land that ended up kind of being spun off. It was so evil, or there was so much evil in it, that it kind of spun off into its own realm. And it introduced gothic horror at a level that was truly staggering. And I know, I think I have 4 or 5 of the books from this series, like Carnival of the Dead, Night of the Black Rose. Boy, I'd have to run into my bedroom and look at my bookcase and try to remember, get all the titles that I have. But it was a truly amazing, well thought out horror-based setting. And it's really exciting. And we had talked about this earlier, that with 5th edition, they were going to start dipping into the well of the history of the game. Everything that was well received in previous editions, and bring it back and update it. And by God, if they didn't go to Ravenloft, and I'm so pumped for that. This article comes to us from Wizards of the Coast's website. Here we go. A classic Dungeons & Dragons villain rises from the grave in a new storyline, Curse of Strahd. Today, Wizards of the Coast announced Curse of Strahd, a new Dungeons & Dragons adventure set in Castle Ravenloft and the surrounding land of Barovia. Written in collaboration with Tracy and Laura Hickman, which those are 2 names who are absolutely legendary. And when I hear those names, I immediately think of Dungeons and Dragons. they were, oh God, I need to keep going. The authors of the original Ravenloft adventure, published in 1983. Curse of Strahd pits players against the vampire Strahd von Zarkovich. Curse of Strahd will be available to everyone on March 15th of 2016. So about a month and a half from now. Revisiting the land of Barovia with the creators of the original Ravenloft adventure has been a highlight of my professional career, said Chris Perkins, principal story designer at Wizards of the Coast. Tracy and Laura Hickman created a timeless villain whose faults reflect the darkest traits of humanity. I can't begin to describe what it's like to walk through the halls of Castle Ravenloft with its creators as your guide. That's an absolute coup that they got them to come back and oh God. Heroes from the Forgotten Realms and other D&D worlds can easily be drawn into Strahd's cursed land. Once there, they must contend with the horrors of Barovia. Its people are melancholy, misshapen, and grotesque, living in fear of wolves and other creatures that serve Strahd's evil will. The only hope for the trapped adventurers is to heed the warnings of a mysterious fortune teller named Madame Eva. Drawing random cards from her Taroka deck, she directs adventurers to search Strahd's domain for artifacts and allies to help the master of Castle Ravenloft. That is, before he orchestrates your demise for his amusement and feasts on your terror. While waiting for the adventure, experience the power of Madame Eva for yourself. D&D fans can have their own distinct fortunes read each day by retweeting the official @wizards_D&D. Must be another underscore Twitter. Wizards_D&D Twitter account using the hashtag D&D Fortune. Madame Eva's fortunes are based on which random card she draws from her Taroka deck and displays for each reading. Check back each day with Madame Eva to see what your hashtag D&D Fortune will foretell. Players will also love to get their hands on a physical Taroka deck of cards produced by Gale Force 9, who we've spoken of before, who make high-quality games and other things. And will be available with the release of the adventure. The Taroka deck is a powerful tool for both Madame Eva and for dungeon masters running Curse of Strahd. By using the Taroka deck to randomize locations within the adventure, dungeon masters can customize each party's exploration of Barovia, allowing Curse of Strahd to be replayed for years to come. OMG. That is see, now I really want to get into D&D 5th edition starting in March. I as much as we've talked about in the past of how they've done some amazing things with 5th edition, I haven't been overly interested in purchasing more books, because that gets expensive, as you well know. But this might actually sway me to get on board. What do you think?
Well, I'm already on board. If I wasn't, yeah, this definitely would go a long way. I loved Ravenloft and I hated Ravenloft because I think it took a specific type of DM to run Ravenloft properly.
Okay.
There, over the years of my youth, I had some very good Ravenloft dungeon masters, like our mutual friend Jeff Waltersdorf ran Ravenloft very well. I had the unfortunate experience of some people in college who did not run it well. They ran it just like you would run any other D&D campaign, but you have to have, there needs to be that sense of kind of a bit of hopelessness and that definitely, like, overwhelming, foreboding, that sense of terror that is hard for some people to really get across. Don't just tell me, it's, that I'm fighting a werewolf. You have to give me more than just that.
It is very, I would say to be done right, it has to be mood and narrative driven.
Yes.
I can think, Todd Roll could do it. I haven't said his name in a while. But no, I quite honestly, in thinking of our mutual friend Jeff, he's a Cthulhu fan. And he has read a lot of weird fiction, horror, and things like that. And I think if you have immersed yourself into it enough and know the importance of the narrative and building up the suspense and not, you run into a werewolf. If you can't do that, if you can't build up that mood, that suspense, that whole air of horror, it falls flat. Absolutely. When I played, we had somebody, I played with a group back in the early 90s that was pretty hack and slash, but the GM was a person who could bounce between hack and slash and narrative driven. But it was interesting to play with hack and slashers with the GM who was trying to do narrative driven, and it got weird in places, as you could well imagine. But Bear tried to roll with it as best he could, and from what I remember, especially us crossing through the mists into Ravenloft for our big adventure that we did, he did the mood pretty well, and I fell in love with that setting. Absolutely. Like I said, when they started releasing the books for Ravenloft, I snatched them up. So, and what is this? March 16th is when this comes, or March 15th. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I might have to scrape together some cash and start making some D&D purchases. Curse you! Curse you! But at least Wizards of the Coast is doing it right. So, and they got the Hickmans back to do it, so it's bound to be good.
Yeah.
All right, enough fanboying and drooling over Ravenloft. We're going to continue on the news trail here with Galactic Gaming News from Ryan Murphy, and he is a contributor to Galactic Netcasts and regularly posts a weekly podcast about digital gaming, console, computer gaming, and things of that nature. And he continues to cover that for us, and he has another update for us. So take it away, Ryan. All right, thanks for that, Ryan. I mentioned earlier that we have other shows in the Galactic Netcasts stable, and some of those, continuing on with the thought process of weirdness and horror, we have a show called Weird World Weekly, and that's where Matt and Dave randomly pick a topic that is about conspiracy, about urban legend, about horror, and things of that nature. And it's a 15 to 20 minute podcast. So if you're looking for a shorter show that and you're into those type of topics, that could be very well for you. We also have some other shows, the Alien Invasion and the Sci-Fi Geeks Club, and also the Podcast of Terror, if you want to speak of horror a little bit further. That's one of our newer shows, the Podcast of Terror, and well worth a listen. We also host things like Galactic Net Bites, like Ryan's Galactic Gaming News that you just heard, and Who Knew and Reviews, which is going to be interesting because Doctor Who is taking a hiatus for a year. Son of a bitch. Oh, well. Anyways, you can check out all these shows and the news that we post on a regular basis on gncasts.com, covering all these different and various topics. So check it out. So we're on to our Kickstarter spotlight. And last week, we talked about the pretty hilarious and interesting game called Beer Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you brought that to us. So where are they at?
Well, they were looking for $10,000. They are at 15,164 with 16 days to go still, with 616 backers. So this nifty little game of 72 cards, where you are basically playing cards like tiles to create your own unique beer garden, is a go.
Yeah,
Quite happy for that.
yeah, absolutely. And looking at their stretch goals, they, let's see, 10,000 was their goal, so that's been totally funded. At 12,000, they added 8 more cards, which are 4 new home cards and 4 common cards to the game. And they unlocked the 15,000 goal, which is the higher card stock quality, which is great, because a game like this that probably has extremely high replayability value, you're going to want a higher quality card stock to ensure that the game doesn't wear out from frequent usage. So, boy, if they can stretch it a little bit further, their next goal is going to be translate the rules, and they're going to translate them into German, French, Dutch, and Spanish. I don't think that they're going to get to their 2 other goals beyond that, but it's funded, and it looks like it's going to be a very, very fun game. So good for them. And that is Steamboat Gothic Studio. If you want to find out more about it, we'll have a link in the show notes, or you can go to steamboatgothic.com. We're going to talk about a new game that I saw that really kind of it looks really interesting, and it is called Tiny Epic Western. Now, the one thing that really truly caught my eye, and I am going to, for the YouTubers that are checking this out, I'm going to share the screen here. This is what really caught my eye, is they have custom bullet dice. So these are basically D6s that are shaped like a bullet that you can roll. Now, what is this game about? It's basically, it's poker. Poker meets worker placement in this artfully crafted 30-minute board game for 1 to 4 players. Tiny box, epic gameplay every time. And I'm going to share the screen again here so you can kind of see what's going on. So you have 6 different players, and each of you has a, I guess it's your own little place that you end up playing. And in the center here, we have a wanted card. Now, I want to find, because I don't want to mess anything up on the explanation of this. There we go. In Tiny Epic Western, you are the boss, and upon your boss card, you will keep track of your posse and your influence. You will be sending your posse members around town to play poker, gain influence, and purchase buildings. Each location offers compelling options of where to place your posse members, like using a building there, gaining instant influence, or doubling down for extra influence at the risk of not getting any. You will play poker. You will play a poker hand at each location you send a posse member to, and I love the look of these cards. They're different suits. You have teepees, horseshoes, steer heads, and cowboy hats.
Sounds like an American version of Lucky Charms.
Yeah, kind of. And lucky horseshoes. It is 3-card poker, which I think is pretty interesting. Here we go. Winning will get you the poker pot and any extra influence from a double down spot. You will need this influence for acquiring buildings later on in the round. The sheriff's office is a unique location offering players the ability to change the value or suit of their poker card. It also offers a way to acquire an extra building each round and even activate your third posse member. Third posse member, activate! Okay. Beware. If you're standing in the way of your opponent, they can send their posse member in for a duel and possibly take your spot. Fighting doesn't go unnoticed around here, or unrewarded for that matter. It is the Wild West after all. The winner of the last duel always takes the wanted card. After the locations have been resolved and players have gained influence for their winning poker hands, a buying purchase occurs. Players can now use their influence to acquire one building from a location where they have a posse member. Remember, hitting up the sheriff's office can get you an extra buy during this phase. That can be a real game changer. Buildings offer you victory points, access their abilities, and industry influence. At the end of each round, the player who has the best poker hand at the town hall advances one of 3 industries forward in their rank. At the end of 6 rounds, or as many bullets as the revolver can hold, the game is over. The industries have now been ranked first through third, and the majority shareholders, players with the most industry influence, will be paid bonus victory points respectively. Players add that to gain the sum of their victory points gained from acquired buildings, with the wanted player gaining an extra 2, and the player who has the most victory points is the winner. Now, here we go. So, looking at this, their goal was 15,000. They are currently at 301,227 with 12 days to go. I think it's been funded.
A little bit. Just a little bit.
This is from Gamelin Games. And it looks like they've created 9 Kickstarters in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Tiny Epic Kingdoms, Tiny Epic Galaxies,
Sure.
Tiny Epic Defenders. Yeah, I have several of these at home.
Excellent. The Giant Meeple Project. Oh, yeah, they've done a lot of stuff. Excellent. Looking at the rewards, if you... Let's see. Well, actually, if you pledge $8, you can get a premium print and play. This digital reward includes DIY game files using art from the final production. Includes deluxe content. If you pledge $18, you get the base Tiny Epic Western, 1 copy of the Tiny Epic Western without deluxe content, the extra stretch goals. Shipping in the US is $2, Canada $9, and the rest of the world $12. But it does ship anywhere in the world. Bless you.
Thank you.
Now, what I would highly recommend to getting the best, I think, bang for your buck, for $24.
Yep.
You get the deluxe version of the game. And you get all the stretch goals, all the digital rewards, and the same shipping amount. And this is going to be a Kickstarter limited exclusivity. So let's see. Yeah, after that, you get into 2 copies of the game. So really, $24 for a game, that's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah.
I think it's probably well worth getting on board, and probably why they got that thing back. And 301,000 out of their 10,000 that they were looking for. That's ridiculous. Let's take a look and see what they unlocked here.
A lot.
Yeah. The $30,000 goal, $30,000 goal, they upgraded the dice from the base to the deluxe D6s or the bullet-shaped D6s. 45,000 box thickness increased to 2 millimeters. Classier look, improved durability, increased longevity. Component upgrade number 2. Cubes become shaped bits. So you've got circles, stars, and gears, and purple horseshoes. 75,000. 3 new building cards are added. That's interesting. At 100,000, you get cowboy-shaped meeples as opposed to regular people meeples. People meeples, never mind. 125,000, the card quality improves. Linen embossed. Ooh, there we go. Oh, here we go. And those better shaped tokens are now printed, screen printed with icons. Box printing improvement at 175,000. 200,000, 3 new building cards added. Oh, wow. 225 double-sided bosses, 4 new base game bosses, 2 new deluxe bosses. 250 upgraded poker chip, which instead of just being a plastic poker chip, like the standard cheap white poker chip, it's now a double-sided and screen-printed poker chip. 275,000 glorious victories. Let's see. Wait. This is for the print and play. Okay.
Yep.
300,000 official solo play rules. Great for learning, great for teaching, great for you. And if they do hit 330,000, plastic wanted card with transparent window. Interesting. Only available in the deluxe versions. And if they manage to hit 400,000, single boss player mats. 12 total boss mats. 8 base, 4 deluxe. Whew. More boss matchups, exponentially more replayable. Wow. I don't know if they would hit 400,000 here in 12 days. I'm gonna say it's probably not gonna happen. But what they've got going on here is pretty fantastic. And I am gonna back this because I want this game. This for $24, you'd kind of be foolish not to. 1 to 4 players, short game time, because there's 6 rounds to the game. And I have a feeling that once you get used to gameplay, that will go even quicker. It looks like a great concept, and just really creative and very interesting based on the description. So it's going to be their estimated delivery is September of this year. And like I said before, it ships to anywhere in the world. Again, the U.S. shipping is $2, Canada $9, and the rest of the world is $12. So that's pretty reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
So what say you, Glenn, based on that whole reading? Yeah.
I'll be back in it.
I'm clicking the...
I know this one will end up in my store as well, because we carry Tiny Epic Kingdoms and Tiny Epic Defenders.
Yeah. I am logging into Kickstarter right now, and take my money, please. There we go, $26. And there's my card, and you have my money, Kickstarter. Thank you. So, there we go. I think this is the second time that during the show I've backed a game as we've been talking about it. So,
only the second? Huh.
I think during the show. I think after the show I've backed others. But I need to give them my money right now. That sense of immediacy hit me, and they can have my money. So, all right. On to the next portion.
So cool.
we are going to discuss a very interesting topic, and I want to thank our listener Scott Schwartz for that topic. And the topic is what we're calling "It's All in Your Head." Minis or no minis? Is theater of the mind going away, or are minis essential to gameplay for tabletop RPGs? Now, I know when I first started out playing Iron Crown Enterprises with my GM at the time, Alan Gano, and we were playing in the Marathon County Public Library, and this is my sophomore year of high school, which would be 1986. I'm old. And I was actually kind of shocked that they allowed us to play in the library. This is the old library, not the new fancy one they've built. I think they built that in 88, 89. Somewhere in there. Doesn't matter. And we only got shushed a few times. We tried to play towards the back of the library. And we tried to keep it down as best we could. And, for the most part, we were playing Iron Crown Enterprises. It was Fantasy Rollmaster, and then we ended up getting into their Space Rollmaster game. And I can assure you that there were no miniatures used in that game. And it was all... And Alan was one of those game masters who could lay things out for you and explain things fairly well. And he used graph paper and, would point, okay, you're here, they're here. There was no miniatures used at all. Have we, as we've progressed, everybody has smartphones, everybody has some form of portable digital device, or have really, I don't want to say taken for granted, but there's some kind of graphical interface or graphical representation of things. And I guess we want to ask the question and discuss the topic of, is it required now? Has the art of using theater of the mind gone away? Or is there still a place for it? Or are there some games where you can just do it better in your head? Or some games that you require miniatures because they're a little bit more complex? I can't see, well, you obviously couldn't do, Warhammer in your head. You obviously, that's a miniatures based game. There is a RPG version of Warhammer, which you possibly could get away with not using miniatures, but
sure.
I'm kind of wondering in that particular instance, if you were playing the minis game and you moved into the RPG, I have a feeling if you made that type of transition, you would probably be more willing than not to, or it would seem more necessary to have a miniature.
Well, you'd already have them too.
Well, yeah, true enough. So, what do you think?
I don't think minis are a necessity. They're nice. They can help clarify some things and give you a bit of a better idea, especially when it comes to combat. I mean, if you need minis moving across a map just to be able to comprehend what a 10 by 10 room is, then I think RPGs may be a bit beyond you anyways. But they're not necessary. I mean, when I first started playing, I played with no minis.
Yeah.
A lot of the games that I've Mist Runner for one, and some of the games that I've run or played in are smaller press, and they don't have minis. So most of the time we don't use them. I might use them like a hex map, maybe some tokens, but even a lot of times I don't even do that. I've always been, not always, but primarily been more of a theater of the mind, where you just you understand what your place is, where you are. When you enter that, that throne room, okay, the king is up on his throne there. There's the 2 guards flanking him. There's 2 guards at the door. The thief is standing to my left, just slightly behind me. The paladin's obviously right in front of me because he's the one doing the talking, because he has a high charisma. That's just how I usually played. That said, when I play with minis, it works just fine. I think the trick is you don't want... I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. I want to play a role-playing game. I don't want to play a minis game when I'm playing a role-playing game. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my minis games. I mean, I spent 7 hours playing Malifaux yesterday. So, but when I play minis games, I play minis games. When I play RPG, I play an RPG. So as long as the minis are a tool used to make the game better, I'm all for it. If they're used to replace all of that, sense of imagination, that sense of wonder, I'm not as big a fan of that. It puts an onus on the dungeon master or the game master of the game to still keep the game immersive. Because when you have it when he just draws out the room and you put your figures in there, some GMs don't bother going into description then, because you can just see, okay, I'm in a room that's 30 by 40. There's a door there and a door there, and the DM doesn't tell you anything, and it loses some of what I think makes a role-playing game fun, and that's the telling of the stories. And stories have descriptions.
Yep.
So if you're going to use, in my opinion, if you're going to use minis and thereby also use maps of some sort or some kind of set, you still have to describe it. You still have to tell that story, and don't get lazy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think the times that I think that the mechanic of line of sight, especially if there are certain spells, certain types of weapons, having a miniature and things drawn up is kind of critical. If you're a game master that really doesn't care so much about that, and I think, in this particular case, it really kind of comes down to game master style and what they want to do or how much they want to put into a game. And I wouldn't say that's good or bad either way. It just depends on their style. A miniature setup can be critical if you're going to throw that mechanic in.
Sure.
There have been times where, and I tend to play support type characters, which are, like clerics or mages or sorcerers, and line of sight is really kind of a big deal. Especially when it comes to like the lower level of teleportation and things like that. You have to be able to see where you're doing the thing. I'm trying to think of, when we were talking about 4th edition of D&D and how it seemed like that particular version of D&D was trying to make it more like a video game in certain respects. Do you think in that particular setting, and I don't know how much, I didn't touch it at all, I don't know how much you got a chance to play that, and for our listeners who are listening to this particular episode, perhaps you can educate us. You can contact us at adventure@gncasts.com. That's our email address, and you can shoot us a little something there and let us know. What I guess my question is, was 4th edition, did that need more graphical representation? Was it more miniature friendly? Was it more dependent on miniatures?
From my, and mind you, I had limited experience with it because I didn't enjoy the system, so I didn't really go out of my way to ever play it beyond the first couple times. But the impression I got was that it definitely didn't necessarily, you didn't have to have minis, but it definitely was a more, minis was the idea behind how you did stuff.
Okay.
But again, that comes down to, it's the players and the GM or the DM is that you can get by without them. But yeah, 4th edition definitely had that feel where they were trying to go, because 4th edition, in my mind, it also felt more like a video game.
Yeah.
And you needed that, that kind of representation because, that's video games are flashy and minis can be flashy. So,
sure.
And I felt that, 4th edition threw the emphasis much more away from role playing and more into just simply combat.
Yeah.
Which, if that's all you're going to do, if all you're going to do is fight stuff all the time, well, then yeah, minis make absolute sense.
Sure.
But that's the thing is that with minis, the other thing aside from the whole, make sure you're still telling the story. If you're using minis, you have to make sure that it doesn't slow down everything too, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we're going to fight. Now I have to draw up my map. Now I have to everyone figure out where they're standing in that room and put everyone in. Now I have to put it where all the bad guys are. And, you take that 15, 20 minutes or longer sometimes to set everything up. It kind of takes you out of that moment. Because there's always that initial bit of adrenaline when the fight's getting ready to start.
Yeah.
And if everything suddenly comes screeching to a halt, that kind of takes you out of the moment. Now, I've played with guys who run minis, and they do it very well because they've got things pre-set up. I actually played with a guy who had the table was the center of the table was he had an overhead projector that he would project onto the table.
Oh, okay, sure,
He would have basically the projector sheets. So when we would enter the room, he would just simply slap that down, and then so the maps, he had all of his maps pre-made. Now, of course, not everyone can do that because not everyone can, fabricate their own nifty table, or it still owns an overhead projector. But that made it flow really smoothly. I've played games at cons where the GM running the game, then he has to stop, and he's draws like half a line, and he looks back at his little notes. Then he draws a little thing and puts it in the door.
Yeah.
He looks back at his notes, and I'm like, oh god, because if you're doing like a whole dungeon crawl, your average dry erase roll up mat isn't even big enough to hold your whole dungeon on, which means you're drawing and erasing all these over and over and over again. So that can, as I said, it can detract from the overall story.
So really at that point, game prep comes down to not just making sure that if you're doing a module or something you've created yourself, that you've kind of tested and made sure you've gathered all the stats for monsters and other creatures and whatever NPCs, but also having those maps ready to go.
Yes, I think that's some people may feel different. Some people I know some people who take great pride in their mini and having that physical representation of, I'm trying to think of that name that one guy had for that one character that was so great for our Hi, My Name Is.
Papadopoulos butt dicks.
Yeah, some people want they want their physical representation of Papadopoulos butt dicks there on the table to rub it in the face of that person who, the name was made to annoy anyways. But a lot of people they take great pride in their minis. I mean, we have a fair number of people who play regularly at our store, and they use minis for their games. And I know watching some of the people when they're at the minis rack and they're looking through trying to find that proper mini for their bard or their their fighter or assassin, whatever. And in those regards, I feel a sense of shame and sadness for all the women who are trying to find, something that is, well, I have 480 minis on my rack. 8 of them are women who are not wearing a chainmail bikini.
Yeah.
So, although it's gotten much better, there's now a lot more options available. Back when I was younger, I mean, the female characters for minis there was, the sorceress wearing her, basically harem outfit, and a thief everyone had, their boobs popping out and
tits aplenty. Yep.
Tits aplenty, which, as an 11-year-old boy, I saw nothing wrong with.
Oh boy.
But I got older and I realized that, oh yeah, that's probably not going to attract the quality people we want to the game.
Yeah.
But that's a completely different topic, which could go on for a long time.
Yes, it could.
But yeah, I mean, some people, they love their minis, and it's an important thing for them. And I know some dungeon masters, who put a lot of time and effort into collecting all the minis. That when you have a fight with 14 goblins, they have 14 different goblin minis because they've gone to the effort of tracking down so that everyone is slightly different. And some people have they get the goblin 6-pack, which is all one goblin holding a spear in the exact same pose. Nothing wrong with that. But some people take pride in their minis collection and they want to use it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, I think you still have to have story to back it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we were talking about with Ravenloft, when I played it in the early 90s, Bear did not, that was the name of our GM. His name was Bear. He did not have, oh God, we loved minis, and I was with a group of people that, I had just learned how to paint miniatures at that time. So, finding that miniature hadn't quite reached that point of an absolute necessity. But, Bear really didn't use miniatures, so he had to lay things out and be as descriptive as possible. And that's kind of, I think, the exchange that you have to make is if you're going to do theater of the mind, you can't half-ass it. It has to be laid out narrative. I mean, even if you look at some of the older, if you have a half-price books or some kind of book reseller that has some of the older D&D modules, you should really read some of those, because the box text, the narrative that is the kind of the descriptor of a particular room that you're in or building that you're in or portion of dungeon that you're in is highly descriptive. Highly descriptive. And I think that that's the level that you need to be at to get away with doing theater of the mind only and not using miniatures. You have to be as descriptive as possible and paint the picture in everybody's head. Now, not everybody's going to see the exact same thing, but everybody needs to have a good general idea of where things are placed so they can set things up and and make things happen. And not, you don't want to bog it down with too much narrative, but you need to be as descriptive as possible with a bit of brevity. The economy of words is essential here. But you need to lay that picture out as clearly and concisely as you possibly can so everybody's on the approximate same page as everybody else. And that's like I said, that's the exchange that you need to make if you're not going to use minis. So would you say that minis make things easier for a GM or harder?
I think in some ways it makes it harder in that you have to do all that, you have to be able to do your map prep and or just, write those maps out on the fly. But I think it makes it easier in settling some disputes for players, because players love to tell their DM they're wrong, which does not fly well at my table. Because that way, when you have the minis, you can have the clarification of, no, you can't shoot the orc. Why? Look at where you're standing. You are a 3-foot 2-inch halfling, and standing directly in front of you is your 6-foot 4-inch half-orc barbarian.
Yeah.
You can't even see the orc from where you are, let alone shoot him.
And if you do fail, you might shoot him in the sack.
Yeah. So,
Because you'd have to go from underneath.
or you can also get that whole thing of are you sure you want to cast a fireball in this room?
Oh God.
Because
Yeah.
then they can see the physical dimensions of that's a 20 by 20 room. Yeah. And what's the blast area of the fireball? 40 feet.
Yeah.
So you want me to let me draw a little red circle at 40 feet is. See how it's bigger than the entire room?
Yep.
So, I mean, I think, again, it comes down to if the DM is prepared to use minis and is prepared properly, I think it can be a great tool.
Yeah.
But I think that some use it as a crutch. But again, that's also, I don't know if crutch is the right word. I guess for some DMs, it's a crutch. For some, it can be a great, I guess, training wheels. When you're a newer DM, it can be great to use minis because it gives you that sense of scale. Where perhaps your storytelling ability is not where you want it to be yet, because this might be your first or second time behind the screen, which that alone is a daunting enough task. Having to keep track of combat and where everyone is, for someone who's less experienced, can be tricky. It also a big part of it again depends on the players. If you have players that are more comfortable playing kind of free and loose, where it's the story's more important than the actual game itself, the playing of the game, then I don't think minis are that necessary. But it doesn't mean you don't have to use them. You can still use them and have a great experience, have a great story. But I think, at least in my experience, I think there's been a shift towards more people using minis. I think partly just because I think a big thing is things like video games, and also the fact that, I mean, we are tactile beings. We like to pick up things. We like to touch things. We like to see physical things. As much as, many of us have great imaginations, for a lot of people, it's that extra element that adds something to the game for them. Yeah. But I know back in my earlier days when I played games at Gen Con, many RPGA games like that, we've never had minis. At least in a lot of the games I played. I mean, I'm sure there were games that used them. Lots of people use them, but I think part of it too is you've got easy things like now you can get pre-painted minis. Yeah. So you can just buy tons of bulk, and you can get I need 48 goblins. Hey, here we go, 48 painted goblins. And you've got like the Reaper Bones lines now, which are actually very affordable minis. Because for a while there, the metals, as great as they are, when you're paying $6-7 for one mini, that got to be a lot of money. When now it's like $7 with the Reaper Bones, you're getting like a giant, like an actual frost giant for $7. Yep. You want to buy a bard, that's $2.50. So it's a lot easier to buy these minis, and the fact that they're plastic. Or actually, I think they're like recycled PVC. If I have 400 minis in the giant minis box, I am not getting a new hernia every other day by lugging that thing around. Yep. Because it's not all lead. And also, if my children decide to eat them, they won't get weird brain disorders and eventually go crazy and die. Yeah. Yep. But that's another entirely different topic, which would go on and on about of how just don't let your children eat lead toys. So I mean, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it. It all depends on what game experience you and the players want. And for some people, that is an experience that is like 4th edition, where you're doing nothing but fighting stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's the thing I've said before, and we say it all the time in my stories, I'm not the arbiter of your fun. I mean, if you're at my table, to a degree, I am, because it's also my fun. But I mean, someone else playing, the guys playing right now at a table in Sacramento, I have no merit or authority to dictate to them how they are playing the game right or wrong. even if it's a game I would never want to play in because they do things completely contrary to how I feel they should be done. That's fine. I'm not playing with them.
No, very true. Yeah, it really, as a game master, you're in control of everything. If you want to have miniatures in the game or not, I mean, that's always up to you. You're in control. Just like anything else, there are pros and cons. The pros, it can definitely nip some rules lawyering in the bud when you can say, well, there's a little bit of wall here, so you can't, you're an archer, you can't shoot through stone to hit this person over here. Or you give the example of the fireball. I've been in a couple of situations where I've almost been killed because somebody misunderstood the size of the room that we're in and they launch a fireball. That's happened to me. I think that was in a game that Bear ran actually. And because he didn't, map things out, there was confusion, and Bear was the kind of person to go, you want to do that? Okay. You can do that. And wackiness ensued. The cons, as we mentioned before, are it adds to your prep time. Because, like you said, nothing kills the velocity of a game for you to go, I know you guys wanted to kill these orcs that are, running into, they just broke down the door and they're running into your section of the dungeon and you guys are going to have to fight. Let's take a 10-minute break and I need to map everything out. Because that, like, you're absolutely right. That kills the adrenaline, the fun. You want to jump into it, but you have to wait until it's all mapped out and everybody can place themselves on the board. And that's no fun. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's not so much that the youth of today, they need their graphics and I don't think it's so much that, perhaps. And to look at it in that particular regard, one, makes us sound like old assholes to use that as an argument. But I think, too, it's if you're in a situation where it's training wheels, there's no shame in that. To get that game experience under your belt until you're comfortable running all the multiple aspects, doing game prep, doing this and doing that, conflict resolution, getting comfortable with the rules for that particular system that you're running and whatnot. It's one less thing that you have to do. So, there's definitely a pro there for especially new gamers. Also, if you're playing with a group of creative people, like if I was playing with JF DeBow, I'm willing to bet that miniatures would definitely be a part of the deal. And you would probably also be having days where you would paint miniatures together. I think it really kind of depends on the chemistry of the group and your interests in gaming and the different aspects of, miniatures, finding miniatures, painting miniatures. Mm-hmm. That's really more of a group dynamic thing. And that's something that can develop organically. Maybe you start without, and then you start to paint miniatures and hang out and decide that maybe this is something that you do want to add. It really, at the end of the day, you, the game master, make the decision. And, you want to listen to your players if you have frequent issues of spending way too much time in gameplay going, explaining the room over and over to people, and that's killing the velocity of the game. Maybe you do want to switch to mapping things out and using miniatures. Maybe the group that you're with is either filled with rules lawyers or people that have a hard time imagining the placement of the room, or perhaps you need to get more practice in being descriptive in your settings. So you definitely want to listen to the group, and the group will kind of guide you towards the decisions that you should probably be making as a game master to ensure that gameplay is fun and gameplay continues to have a smooth flow where you're not losing the velocity. I keep using velocity. I just love that word. But it's true. You're all moving at a pace. And the narrative of the game, the actions that are taking place in the game, if you're in a tavern, things are probably moving slowly. But if you're in the middle of the battle, things pick up. The pace picks up. So you want to make sure that you're trying to keep that velocity going at the appropriate level. And anytime that you have to put the brakes on that velocity, especially at key points where things are happening, that can take you out of the game. And if you're playing with people that aren't patient or they're, they really wanted to have this particular fight or whatever, you don't want to hear them go, all right, I'll, go take a 10-minute break or whatever, and we'll get back to this, because that's just no fun. That's no fun for anybody. So said it before, said it again. One, Glenn's saying of, I'm not the arbiter of your fun. We can't tell you what to do. The only thing that we wanted to do here is kind of lay out pros and cons and talk about the different thought processes and instances where minis may work out better or may actually be distracting. And that really kind of comes down to group dynamic, the individuals that are playing, and what level you might be at as a storyteller, as a game master. So, all right. Anything more to add to that, Glenn?
No, I think we covered it pretty good.
I think we did too. Well, that means we've come to the portion of the meeting where we talk about Hello, My Name Is. And it's your opportunity to tell us about your favorite character that you have or are currently playing. Or maybe you have a miniature that you've painted for that particular character. Tell us about it. We'd love to hear about that character, and we want to talk about it and share your story about your character and the setting that you play that character in. And you can go to Galactic. Oh boy, I need to change this note here. You need to go to gncasts.com/adventure. gncasts.com/adventure. And you can click on the graphic on the right-hand side that says, Hello, my name is, and you can fill out the short form that I have there. It's basically your name, your character's name, the system that this particular character that you enjoy playing. And it's a good way for us to talk about you and to talk about different game systems. I know when Daryl Johnston sent us something about his character Drake in our earlier episodes, we strolled down memory lane talking about Iron Crown Enterprises Space Master. So, it's a good way to start that conversation about other game systems that we maybe haven't played in a long time, or maybe we don't know anything about, and we can do a little research and talk about that particular system. Yes, we do ask for your email address. No, I don't spam you. I don't send you email that you don't want from this from Hello, My Name Is, but what I use it for is to send you a thank you, and that thank you comes in way of a certificate which has your name, your character's name, and some of that information as a way to say thank you for taking the time to contact us and let us know about the game systems and the characters that you play. You can find out more about our meetings. Check out the show notes from each meeting, contact info, and you can subscribe to all of our shows, including this one and some of the other shows that Galactic Netcast has. You can go to gncasts.com/adventure, like I said before, and that will take you right to our particular show. You can find us and follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group by using the Facebook search term Galactic Netcasts. We do have a Facebook page, but we're not nearly as active as we are on the group. We're trying to build a community, and we've got a pretty good community built as is, and we want to add to that, and we want to continue having that group conversation that I think works a lot better. Having a Facebook group to do what we're trying to do. You can also find all the information of our other social media outlets by clicking the links on our website. You can find our YouTube channel where you can see the video versions of our Adventure Party meetings, and you can go to youtube.com/Galactic Netcasts to find the Adventure Party playlist. If you're using iTunes or Stitcher, please take a moment and give us a review. iTunes, it's a star system. Stitcher, it's thumbs up, thumbs down. Let us know what you think. Please, if you get a chance, write a review and let us know. Positive or negative, we don't care. Your comments can help shape the show and make it a little bit better. Your input is what we desire to make a better show for everybody to listen to. You can leave us feedback by emailing adventure@galacticnet. Oh, gosh, I did it again. adventure@gncasts.com. That is adventure@gncasts.com. Or you can call or text us at 805-328-3966. Again, 805-328-3966, and you can leave a voice or text message at that number. Depending on your particular cell phone package, there could be a fee for a text message that you send. It depends. So I want to thank you, Glenn, for joining us once again and talking about miniatures and their importance and their place in gameplay. Where can people find out more about the B-Movie Bunker or Mistrunner the RPG?
You can find me on Facebook, Mistrunner RPG. You can just follow me on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube, Naked Hope Productions, and the B-Movie Bunker. Or just follow me on Twitter at Naked Hobo.
Nice. Makes me giggle every time. Hey, before we end, they've got a new round of Doctor Who miniatures. This is the 9th Doctor with banana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the banana. That's a Hot Topic exclusive. I'm the old man who goes to Hot Topic, has a Hot Topic credit card, and spends their Hot Topic cash to buy stuff because I love my son and I know he enjoys that stuff. And I like being the old guy that comes in there and makes the young kids uncomfortable while he buys his Alice in Chains t-shirt. That actually happened today.
They still had an Alice in Chains t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. It's the cover for Dirt.
Okay.
Yep. We got father and son Alice in Chains Dirt t-shirts.
I was watching an episode of Portlandia, and they were talking about it was the Take Back MTV.
Oh, sure.
And someone said, yeah, the Sonic Youth, they're like 50 now.
Yeah. Yes, they would be.
I'm like, yeah, I guess they are.
Well, I look at it this way. Alice in Chains put out the Devil Put Dinosaurs Here. I believe that I'm probably misremembering one of the words in the title, but as soon as that hit the Google Play Store, I bought it immediately. It's a great album. So, yep, I'm that guy. So there you go. Anyways, enough of Hot Topic talk. I want to thank everybody for listening to Hot Topic Talk and our talk about miniatures today on the Adventure Party. May your characters never die and your adventures always be epic. Thank you and good night.